Hello, welcome to Camaro Mods channel. Hope everybody's having a great day. Today we're doing the Jacfab Ported intake manifold. This is for the LFX engine. This is just a basic install for a ported intake manifold. We're going to go, I've already got the old intake taken off, so this is the install guide. This is the ported one. First we're going to do a product review. We're going to show you how much work was done to this intake manifold by Jacfab. I'll get a close-up zoom on it. Okay, this is the stock manifold. On the ported intake manifold, all of this is cut out. And see all this down here? That's all filled in. So why GM would put something in there like that to make the air swirl around in there, I have no idea. But Jacfab is Jason. I'll call him Jason. I don't need to call him Jacfab, but Jason's done a wonderful job on these for the V6 community. We appreciate all your work you do for us, Jason. And these are all filled in here. And so we'll switch over to the ported one now. You'll be able to see a lot of difference. So keep in mind, all this is cut out up here, and all this down here is all filled in. Quite a difference, huh? See all the bottom down there is all filled in. All the top up here has all been cut out. All ported out. Does a wonderful job. So this one's been ported for the 80mm throttle body. You got to have the spacer to install it with. It's not a spacer, but it's an adapter that so your bolts will line up. And Jason, we appreciate all your hard work on these things. And there for a while I was reading in the comments, I think in 15 or 16 years you're going to quit making these LFX intake manifolds. So I'm glad I got my hands on this one anyway. He also has a new website. I'll put a link down below for his new website. It's for several different engines. The newer engines. So this is a basic install guide for all of the Jacfab intake manifolds, the ported ones. And we'll go through and we'll install all the gaskets and we'll do all the torque sequences, and we're going to show you step by step on how to install this. So the main thing you got to do is take your time. Make sure everything is very clean. Be real careful on installing this. And so on these intake manifolds, this is $450 for the intake manifold. For the original throttle body, that's 72mm, but it's $50 more if you want the 80mm throttle body. He ports it out a little bit more. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go ahead and put in the O-rings here, the gaskets here. And he does send all your gaskets you need. The O-rings, the ones for all these. So we'll get all these put in. We'll get the aluminum spacer put back on. I didn't buy the spacer from Jacfab. I probably should have, but Jacfab also has the intake spacer for the LFX engine. It's for the 2012 plus 3.6 V6. These spacers are available at Jacfab. I'll put a link below on his website, and they're available for around $1.99. I know it would. I'm sure it would help because you got that much less heat. It would be absorbent on this spacer right here. And the more heat you got with your air going through, it's going to rob your horsepower. You want to That's why you put in a cold air intake, to cool your air down. And you don't want something just before you get to the engine, like your intake manifold or your spacer or any of that, to add more heat to your air going into your engine. Okay, these little gaskets, it don't matter which way you put them in. Just press them in. Pretty simple to put in. Press them in. You don't have to put any kind of sealer, lubricant, or anything on them. Press them in. Just make sure they all sit in there real nice. Now we're ready for the spacer. These little tabs here go down inside here. And your other gasket goes on top of that like that, but it goes on the engine first. So now we'll get the screws and we'll get them torqued down. I might also add, before you install this, make sure that all these surfaces are very, very clean. See over here where it's got some markings and stuff on it? Make sure that is really smooth. I took some 800 grit sandpaper and just sanded this a little bit to smooth it out, completely smooth. It's got to be smooth, that way it has a good surface to mount on. So just keep that in mind before you put it all back together. It's got to be clean and it's got to be smooth. I never did find the exact torque specifications on these bolts here, so I'm just going to snug them up good. Okay, now we're ready to lay this O-ring in there. It's the same way, it don't matter which way you lay it. Just push it down in there. Now that one's ready to go. Okay, now we're ready to go over to the car. Okay, over here on this engine, if you didn't watch the last video, when we pulled all this off, we took and vacuumed all this out. Now we'll pull the tape off. And what we're going to do, we're going to get a rag with acetone on it. We're going to wipe all this down. And make sure all this is really smooth, really clean. So I'll go get a rag. I also got all these spark plugs changed out. I got all this insulation taken off. It looks much better. Okay, this is just a rag with acetone on it. I'll wipe all this surface area down. See how black it is? Make sure all this is very clean. There's some spongy rubber right here. This piece right here. This is just an insulator for the fuel injectors. I hear they're very loud, so that's just kind of dampen the noise on that. Okay, rub your finger over it. Okay, everything's all nice and clean, ready to go. Now we'll go get our gasket. You got these little plastic tabs here that's facing up. It lays down on top of it. Okay, make sure it seats down in there real nice, where it's nice and flat. If it's sticking up like that, you're gonna have a vacuum leak. Make sure it's sitting down in there good. So now we're ready for the intake manifold. First thing we do, grab this bolt, stick her down in there. Sit down in there real nice. See if that'll start. That one started fine. Go get the other bolts. Okay, the reason why I put this bolt up here is because it's a little bit shorter than the rest of them. Just keep that in mind. You don't want to get them mixed up with the longer ones. So these are all snugged down good, so now we're ready to torque them down. Okay, this is the intake manifold torque sequence. This is number 1 right here. Go to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's your torque sequence on the LFX manifold. And you set it up for 18 foot-pounds or 216 inch-pounds. That's your torque specs. Okay, here's your number 1 right here. Okay, that's 1. 2's down here. Go real slow on it. There you go. There's 2. Number 3 would be right over here. Okay, there's 3. And 4 would be over here. Okay, see how I did it? 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this one here's 5. Okay, 6 back here. Okay, intake manifold is torqued down. Now we'll start adding putting all the stuff back. That's a vacuum line that goes over to the catch can. We got a big vacuum line over here somewhere. Okay, now we'll do this is the Evap Purge valve. This one will kind of snap in there. It's got a 10mm bubble on it. And don't forget your lap sensor here. The bolts should be up in here. Okay, we got everything back together on the manifold. We got the two vacuum lines, got the map sensor and the Evap purge valve. That's 10mm. So now we're ready for the throttle body. And what we're going to do on that, we're not going to put on the 80mm right now. We're going to go back with stock. Why are we doing this? To make sure it runs okay, nice and smooth, before we change out too many parts. That way we'll find out real quick whether they got any air leaks, vacuum leaks. If it runs smooth and okay, then we'll pull the throttle body back off, and then we'll start swapping that stuff out. We'll add the 80mm, we'll add the nitrous plate on there. We'll start adding that stuff on there. But for right now, we're going to put on the stock throttle body. We'll start it up, make sure it's going to run all right. The reason why we're doing this, we don't want to make too many changes at one time, because if we do, we'll run into problems. So when you put on an 80mm throttle body, that's a lot more air that's going to be going through there. And it's going to take a while for the mass airflow sensor to catch up. So we're going to make sure all this is okay now before we go any further. So I'll get them tightened down. Need another 10mm. Okay, we have the throttle body reinstalled. Got it plugged back in. So now we're ready to start it up and see how it's going to run. I know this is a little bit more trouble doing it this way, and those that's putting back on the original throttle body, this is about where your video ends. Just go ahead and put your elbow back in and it should be about complete. But we're adding the 80mm throttle body. We'll do that later after we do a test run on it. We're going to make sure it's going to run okay. So I'll go get the key and we'll start it up. Okay, it idles down real good. Sounds good, it's running good. So now we're ready to install the 80mm. So on this install, if you're going back with the 72mm, just finish up with your elbow here and you're done. But on this install, all this is fine now. It all runs good, smooth, no vacuum leaks. So now we can proceed with taking this one off and putting the 80mm on there. Okay, now we're ready to install this adapter plate. Okay, on these we're just gonna snug them down. Crisscross pattern. When you install this, make sure you have the gasket facing out. Okay, then we're nice and snug now. Okay, we've got the 80mm throttle body on. Got the nitrous plate put on. And this throttle body, you gotta run the connection on the left side. On the stock one, you run it on the right side. Just keep that in mind when you're putting the 80mm throttle body on. Okay, we got this all back together. We're only missing one hose clamp here. I didn't realize the original one was going into a smaller throttle body, and it's a smaller size. I was hoping it'd be the same size, but I didn't even check them. So I'll have to order another one of them. No big deal. So we're all, see why I was wanting some 90s to put up here? It's all sticking up here. But I can't put 90s here because this is where my jets go. So hopefully it'll clear. Flatten it out some. But I think we're ready for first startup. See what it's going to do. Now keep in mind this is a lot more air going through here. And this mass airflow sensor might take a few seconds for it to idle down right. So keep that in mind. So we know all this was okay. So now we added the nitrous plate, 80mm throttle body. Got it connected on the left side instead of the right. Got it all hooked back up. Had to cut my boot down a little bit. Had to cut about 1 inch off of it. So I think we're all good to go. So we'll do a startup on it. See how it's gonna do. Okay, it didn't take long, did it? Took, what was that, 30 seconds or so? I'll rev it up, see what it's gonna do. Okay, I got my nitrous purge lines put in. I'll show you where they're at. This is the main line coming off of the purge solenoid, coming over here to a T, coming across over here, coming out in front of the grill. That was actually a windshield kit, and I thought this in front of the grill would be so much easier to do. So that's the way I did it. I mean, the line was just perfect, coming off the solenoid over to the radiator area. So I put the T in there, run it back across. I'll give you a shot of the front grill here real quick. See the purge? That's where the purge lines come out, right here. One on each end of the grill. So that'll look pretty cool. I still have the two 10mm bolts to go in behind here, so don't forget them. I got to get them put in, and I'll be done with this install. That's going to pretty well do it with the Jacfab install, the ported intake manifold. If you go through this step by step, you shouldn't have any problems with it. So that's going to about do it on this install here. But if you go through this step by step, take your time, you shouldn't have any problem putting any of this stuff on. Now I got to move this light and see how much clearance I'm going to have on this. I just hope this ain't going to be a problem. I haven't put my jets in here yet. So I'm probably going to start off with a 50 shot. 50 shot of nitrous. That 50 shot is extra 50 horse. 100 shot that's the slang for nitrous. 100 shot would be 100 extra horsepower. So we're going to start off low and see how it goes. That's going to wrap it up on this one, so I appreciate you watching, and hopefully you won't have any trouble installing this ported intake manifold. This will cover a lot of different years, a lot of different, it's not just for the 5th gen, it can also go into the 6th gen. Just all the steps are pretty much the same. Just take your time and make sure all your surfaces are all nice and clean. Make sure it sits down on there right. And it's pretty simple to do. So Jason, we appreciate all your help for the 5th gen and the 6th gen 6-cylinder community, making all these good parts for us. So again, thanks for watching.